I cried unto Allahayim with my voice, even unto Allahayim with mine voice. He gave ears unto me. In the day of trouble, I sought Ahayim. My soul ran in the night and ceased not. My soul refused to be comforted. I remembered Allahayim and was troubled. I complained and my spirit was overwhelmed. Thou holdest mine eyes waking. I am so troubled that I cannot speak. I have considered the days of old, the years of the ancient times. I call to remembrance my song in the night. Spirit made diligent search. Will the Adonai cast off forever? And will he be favorable no more? Is his mercy clean gone forever? Doth his promise fail forevermore? Allahayim, forgotten to be gracious? Had his anger shut up his tender mercy? I said, this is my infirmity, but I will remember the years of the right hand of Onelo. I will remember the works of Ahaya. Surely I will remember thy wonders of old. I will meditate also of all thy works and talk of thy doings. Thy way, O Allahayim, is the sanctuary. Who is so great Allahayim as our Allahayim? Thou art the Allahayim that doest wonders. Thou declared thy strength among the people. Thou hast with thine arms redeemed thy people, the sons of Jacob and Yasaph. Selah. The waters saw thee, O Allahayim. The waters saw thee. They were afraid. The depths also were troubled. The cloud poured out water. The skies sent out a sound. Vain arrows also went abroad. The voice of thy thunder was in the heavens. The lightning lightened the world. The earth trembled and shook. Thy way is in the sea, and thy path in the great water, and thy footsteps are not known. Thou leadest thy people like a flock by thy hand of Mushi. for the human soul. That's what life is all about. When man fell, it quickly became a battle to control the human soul. But what is the human soul? And what is it comprised of? As always, you get the mysteries in the language of the Negroes, the language of the North American Indians, the Native Americans, the language of the Hebrews, the ancient Israelite, us. You get the mysteries from our language that is unmatched by no one. So we're going to look at that now. The Hebrew word of the day, I'll write it now so you can see. You have the noon. This is the noon, as we've seen, when it's actually in the middle or the beginning of a Hebrew word. And then you have the peh. This is the peh, gives you the P word. And then you have the shin. This is the shin. This is the word that you find in Hebrew, H, 5315. That's where you find this word, 5315. And as you know, this is modern Hebrew characters that we're using here, just because it's what we have to read today. But I do prefer the ancient Hebrew because that's raw and powerful. The ancient Hebrew alphabet, Aleph, Abba, if you will, or Aleph, Beta. So in transliteration now, this you have from the system of writing to this system of writing. This right here is the noon, gives you the N sound, and this is the pa. PH right here is pe. This is no. This is pe in the Hebrew. And then you have the sh, sh. This is the sh called shen, sh sound. So here you have the transliteration and the arrows that accompany them. Accordingly, those are the three natural characters outside of the vowel sounds that come naturally, the transitional vowel sound that naturally flows if you have to pronounce this word. Now you have the nut. So again, how the vowel works in Hebrew is that for you to go from the noon to the pe, then there's got to be the word is nepe, nepe. This right here. This character right here gives you PH, and it sounds like an F. See there? Fe. That's actually what it actually sounds like, and you find that in our language, the slave coast of Africa, the real Jews, the Hebrews, we actually do the same thing. You can say pota or fota. The word pota means to come out. It's a Hebrew word to come out. And then you also have fota, also means to come out. Amazing. Think about that. So you find these are different accents, but it's replete in the Hebrew Bible as well. So here you have pe. So here you have ne. So nefe or nepe. See that? Nefe. So ne, a. So there's that a sound that exists here is the a or the r sound that actually exists here, which is a vowel sound, ne. And then as you transition, this one is fe, fesh. So a, now you see the resonating sound, esh, fesh. So that's the a sound right here. In transition, no one can dispute that, because it's all in there naturally when you have to pronounce this word. And as you know, fesh, shi. And when you pronounce the she sound, there's an E right here that if you're not a native speaker, you're not going to pick up on that. If this Hebrew is not your natural language, you're just going to say it's nefesh. But you won't understand that there is a what? There's another vowel right here. if you truly want to pronounce this word like us, like the true speakers of the language. So this is the word here. The word is nepheshi. Nepheshi. In here it tells you the way they want you to pronounce it in Strong's, the Strong's Concordance or the Hebrew Concordance, you know, they have it right this. I mean, they didn't even put this right here. They should. The E sound should be there. But think about that. The way they want you to pronounce it is N-E-H, which right here links to this. Ne. And then you have the feshi. You have feshi. See that? Two words. Na. Nefeshi or nefeshi. Amazing. So the interesting thing is that they tell you that this is fit. Even though right there they write it with PH. And that's our language. Like I told you, if you want to say pota, you can also say fota. There are many words in our language that are replete with this. It's powerful. Because we are the Hebrews. They call us the Hebrews. We are the true Hebrews that you read about in the Bible. Amazing. In the slave coast of Africa, where all the African Americans that went to Jamaica, Haiti, America here, and scattered, you know, even all the Ewe people, you find out the Bantu speakers are all the Israelites in the slave coast of Africa and sub-Saharan Africa. They have different, this language has split. But the people that are still speaking the purest, the tribe of Judah in the slave coast of Africa, still got a mystery. This is what my ancestors used to speak. Ancient people. Amazing. So now, that's how you want you to pronounce it, which is correct. The only difference is that I will also put the shi right here, which is nefeshi. But in terms of breaking this word down, I'm going to break it down in two different parts. By the way, the word means, I'm going to break it down first before I give you the definition so you can see what it is and how powerful this stuff is. And you find this in Hebrew 5315. Two parts is the word here. One, and this again, it means the soul. It means the soul. S-O-U-L. That's literally what it means. That's what you call English, and soul is what we the Hebrews call nefeshi. I'm going to show you that. Now, the interesting thing is that there are two parts of that. This right here is na, which is N-A. Na. And then you have the feshi. Right here. This is na. And then this one is nefeshi. This is na in Hebrew. And then this is feshi, nefeshi. How it's written. Why here, this word na, you find this is a Hebrew word. Everyone that speaks Hebrew must know this word. This is na. And it's a conjunction. We use that in many different forms. You find this word in Hebrew 5, as an example, you can find it in Hebrew 5, Hebrew 5060 in the Bible. And let's look at that. The word is, like we saw the word is actually, it's a good example. This is Hebrew. Hebrew 5060. The word is naga. You have na. This is the noon again. Then you have the ga sound. Naga. And then you have this is naga. You transliterate as na. Naga. This is ga. You have the G right here. And then you have the na. They are the sounds, the Hebrew sound. Obviously, the ha at the end, which is represented by this. Two parts, just like in nefeshi, you have the na, and you have the ga. The word ga means to touch or to go. For example, it means to touch. That is to lay the hand upon for any purpose. Euphemistically, to lie with a woman. We've seen this before when we looked at the word.
Genesis.
Well, we looked at the word on plague. Remember when we studied plagues? Mm-hmm. The word plague means to naga. Mm-hmm. The word na is two, and that's what it tells you there. It means two. So this right here is two. And then this word right here, it means touch. touch, to touch. Just like this right here also means to, right here. But this one, feshi, is another Hebrew word. So again, as you can see, the complexity of, and the simplicity and the structure of words and sentences, this is not just a word, it's a sentence. Or rather, a phrase. So here you have to touch. Because the word ga means to touch. Ga-ka. Or to poke. That's literally what it means. And when, like we saw in the book teaching on the plagues, when the Mosai said that he's gonna no ga or na ga, which is he's gonna bring a plague, he's gonna pass over and he's gonna bring a plague, it means that he's actually gonna touch and smash that place. Or when somebody oye ga ka means that the person has actually, they lay their hands on you. Amazing. And that's the word to touch. Again, it means to touch. That is to lay the hand upon. Ga-ka. And ga-ga-ga-ka. Amazing. It means to strike, to destroy. Exactly. That's the root word for the word naga or the plagues. But similarly, the same thing right here. So you have feshi right here. You find a good example in Hebrew, the other part to understand. The root word right here is what? Right here. This is the root that breaks down this word. Fe. As you know, she is actually continuous tense. Continuous. Something that happens always. That's what this word represents. But this is the root understanding of this word. So what does that mean? That brings these mysteries to us. Listen to that. You find that word to understand it. You're actually going to find it in Hebrew 5774. Let's look at that. Hebrew 5774. The word is, look at that. You find it in Hebrew 5774. Hebrew 5774 is the word. And check this out. This is how you write it. This is the or anye in Hebrew, as we know. And then you have the wa. And then you have the this is powerful right here. This word right here is, this gives you the u. And then this gives you the or, and then this gives you the fe. So what you have here is ufe. This word right here is ufe, or simply uph. That's how they have it in your Strong's Concordance. And it means to cover with wings or obscurity, hence to fly. These are the words that we use to describe birds. In Genesis, it tells you that when it's creating birds, anufe, the word ufe means to fly. And the same root word is also used to create the soul, because the soul is supposed to fly. The soul is a spirit. So right here you have fe, means to fly, just like right here. Fe means to fly, same thing. So, ufe. In Hebrew, so fe. So it tells you this is to fly around. That's actually what the soul means in Hebrew, literally. Something that's vital. It means it flies around, it's vibrant, it's active. Vitality, speaking about movement. Something that has movement, that just cannot be stagnated. I mean, and there's so much more in this that we can bring out, but I can stop right here, right now. So with that understanding, let me read the definition of the soul in the concordance. So you find it once again in 5.3, Hebrew 5.3.1.5, and it means, Hebrew H 5.3.1.5, and it means, again, the word is nefeshi or nefeshi or nefedoshi. Feshi is to fly around, to be continuously doing that. It means properly a breathing creature, that is animal, has to do with breath. So the flying thing has to do with breath, breathing. Used widely in a literal, accommodated, or figurative sense. So you can use that in many different senses. So it means to breed a creature. It literally means vitality. So this word right here, soul, in Hebrew really means vigor. It means vitality. Vitality has to do with movement, vibrant, something living, has life, exactly what you find in this word right here. Nepeshi. So I have to take time to break this word down today. Soul means vitality. Again, when man was formed, he was called Chi, Nefeshi. Finally, one more word. As you know, you have a Chi in Hebrew right here. This is the Cheta, and then you have the Yode. So what you have, the living soul. This is living. As you know, this is Chi. This is the Cheta, and this is the Yode. So Chi, Nefeshi, which is a living, vibrant soul, is what was formed, and that's what we became. Okay. That's what we became. So let's look at the teaching today. So as you understand, there is a battle about the soul. There's a conflict. Who gets to control your soul? We saw the teaching on the circumcision of the heart by the Spirit. There is a battle, global. This is the real battle that is raging, that shook me up as I was studying this thing last night. That makes you want to sit around for a minute and think about life. And think about what we all doing here. It's amazing. So that's the Hebrew word of the day. Soul. So let's go into the teaching. So we are starting again. We have two series. We mentioned that we're going to have two series of teaching. In the first part that we engaged in last week, we looked at some of the key, hindrances that has held our people back from receiving the truth. As we've seen from the teaching of the law, that there was something obstinate about our people, having eyes not to see, ears not, heart not to perceive, eyes not to see, ears not to hear. He knew that. But a lot of our people have been snared since we fell. And we're going to see that in the teaching today. Very critical teaching to understanding the political spectrums. Because if you claim to be astute today, if you have formal education, which essentially is colonial slavery education, you have received this teaching in your schools, in your primary schools. If you're a political science student, you will know about this understanding. We are actually now in a voting season where you have to actually think, so at least rationally about where do I cast my vote? In other words, where do I put my faith? Where do I sell my soul? Because where your heart is where your treasure lies. Or where your treasure is where your heart is. Amen. So we saw nationalism as one of the key constraints that has kept us away, or rather the false concept of nationalism, where they created nation state. A nation state need power, or at least a perception of power, to be able to operate that's supposed to be given to them by the people. And in that constraint, or in that framework, there is also the need for ideologies that is brought in out of the nation states to solidify their positions. And then make the general populace feel like they are a part of the process of electoral system. And that is why, in a time like this, in a prophetic time like this, there is a high disinterestedness towards the political system, because now people have seen that the whole political system is a joke. Right. When they look at electoral participation, many people are actually coming to vote. They see that the numbers are dwindling from each electoral year to year. When they look at their statistics, what does every political position and bandwagon say? They say we must mobilize people to participate. We must mobilize them to participate. We need a huge turnout for this election. Because that solidifies their position, makes it look like their democracy is what? Working. Because what they talk about democracy is participation. Electoral participation. The so-called electoral process. But what we're going to be looking at today, we're going to be seeing that political spectrums are designed to keep the holy people down. Political spectrums are designed for a greater elusive deception. Those that have left the truth of the Almighty, you will see that these people are snared. Especially the more educated that you get, the more likely you will be snared, because you will be forced to think that this is elitist way of thinking, this is intellectualized way of thinking, where we have to think in this regard. After all the high political pundits and all the scholars from high accredited institutions, they're thinking in this framework. What's wrong with it? But you're going to find out that we're about to measure it. We're about to measure this according to truth. So, in beginning, let's start with reading from the book of Jeremiah, chapter 10, verse 1, real quick. Go ahead.
Hear ye the word of Adonijah, speaketh unto you, O house of Israel.
O who?
House of Israel.
If you don't know who you are, then this doesn't make any sense to you. But if you think you're a Christian that can believe anything you want, that can actually have a political position in so-called political democracy, or a republic, then this does not make sense to you. If you're a slave, or you've been a child of a slave, and trying to brush it off, say, I'm not a slave, but you still think in this way, this truth that we're about to talk today does not make any sense for you. But if you're someone that really want to examine something based on truth, it will make sense for you. Let's read it.
Verse 2. Thus saith Adonijah, learn not the way of the heathen.
Learn not the what?
The way of the heathen.
The ways. The way of the heathens. Who are heathens? What you're going to be finding out is that political spectrums was brought to us by who? By the heathens. And it's astronomically ironic that people that claim to be having any faith that is founded on the scripture will actually be hanging on these ideologies. It's amazing. The scripture says what? Learn not what?
The way of the heathen.
Why?
And be not dismayed at the signs of the heaven, for the heathens are dismayed at them.
Now the second part ties into astrology. And a very sophisticated teaching who can even show you how their philosophies even lines back to the worship of astrological gods. Because astrological gods are the fallen spirits that actually gave birth to these ideologies. They all go hand in hand. Every god has their law, have their ideologies, have their principle. Do you understand when you use the word principalities and powers? The word principle means the control of a discipline of knowledge. So principalities that have the idea to, because you want to see what they did today, like they always say, man, this is brilliant. When we're going to begin to review this stuff, you will see yourself that this is brilliant. It did not just come from just regular people, what they did. Would have used political spectrum to divide the people so that it can rule them and keep them docile, particularly the holy people of the Bible. It is brilliant. I don't want to give them that credit, but we know it comes from a principality. Read it.
For the customs of the people are vain.
The custom of the people are what?
Vain.
Vanity. It has no root in truth. It has no root in righteousness. So, to support that, let's look at Deuteronomy chapter 12, verse 30. Start from verse 29.
And when Adonijah thy Elohim shall cut off the nations from before thee, whither thou goest to possess them, and thou succeedest them, and dwelleth in their land, take heed to thyself that thou be not snared by
that thou be not what?
Snared.
By what?
Following them.
By what?
Following them.
By what?
Following them.
Following them. We're not to follow the ideologies of the nations or their way of thinking. Because it's a trap against its truth. It's a trap against its understanding. It's going to tell you there, read on.
After that they be destroyed from before thee, and that thou inquire not after their Elohim.
Learn not the ways of the heathen. Do not be dismayed by the what? The signs of the heaven, which links back to the gods that give you ideologies and philosophies on how to live and administrate the earth when our kingdom falls or fell. Read that again.
Take heed to thyself that thou be not snared by following them. After that they be destroyed from before thee, and that thou inquire not after their Elohims, saying, how did these nations serve their Elohims? Even so will I do likewise.
How did these people get their knowledge? How did they set up their civilization? Their ideologies, their principles that rules them. When you're talking about a principle of operation, ideologies are basically principles on how to do things, but principles are handed down by what? Principalities, which are what? Gods. You don't know that gods are attached to different ideas, but people are actually being used to bring them about. So now, I have a book here that we looked at last week, again, called Understanding World Politics. And here, we're looking at liberalism and conservatism. You have liberal on one hand, you have the far right and far left. Then you have the moderate, so-called, in the middle. Then you have the communists and fascists. You have capitalists on one end. You have communism and socialism, which is still the same thing. But in this book, listen to what it says here. I'm going to just read a few places in this book before we start going into this topic. It's a political and philosophical molds in which popular approaches to domestic and international politics are cast in most Western countries are neither reform nor realism, but rather liberalism and conservatism. The one reason for this, doubtless, the instrumental and the procedural nature of the former. Realism or reform gives appraisal of the nature and dynamics of the political process. It requires limits and its requirements, limits and laws. Liberalism and conservatism, by contrast, partake of characters of political ideologies. Quite commonly, they provide moral justification for the claims of interest groups. So now, this is supposed to be a moral measure. So we're speaking about moralism. And when you talk about moralism, you're speaking about what is right and what is what? Wrong. But you're going to find out that none of this stuff actually really looks at what is right or what is wrong according to the way it should be. Here he says, they may also, in more general term, constitute a philosophy. Again, we're not supposed to deal in what? Philosophies. These are philosophies. But you're going to find out that these philosophies came from the heathens. And if you're an Israelite, you shouldn't be looking at these philosophies. Because these philosophies are set up as a trap against us. And if you're a so-called Christian that want truth, that want to follow the book of the Israelites, you should not be looking at these philosophies and ideologies. Because they set up the false concept of nationalism or nation state and countryhood that brings about these ideologies. And you must pick which spectrum that your faith and your belief lies that propels what you decide in when you go to the booth. But you're going to find out none of these things lines up to truth. They were designed from its inception for deception. Says here, one of the difficulties with liberalism and conservatism issue from their alternative meaning as philosophy, political ideology, or public mode. In addition, they plainly lack meaning. Consider, for example, liberalism has meant at various stages Manchester laissez-faire, a moderate status interventionism of safeguard liberty and equality. Example, the liberalism of the New Deal and the utopianism in world affairs. So basically it's telling you that they don't have any strong position. They shift their position whenever they desire. When liberalism, the concepts so-called started, it has shifted in meaning and in scope even up to this point. So where do you stand? That's the point that he's saying here. But I want to hit some key points that is mentioned here. He says here, nevertheless, public policy including foreign policies, have been influenced by these living political doctrines, while recognizing with Erasmus that very definition is dangerous. We may usefully explore their places in Western civilization. Their political currency from the founding fathers to the incumbent presidents suggested they are perhaps the prevailing Western political creed. So this is coming from where? Westerners. This is the bedrock that modern Western civilization was built. And as we're going to find out, they actually came from France and Britain. The age of enlightenment, the time of the bourgeois, what you call feudalism and mercantilism in Europe, when nation states are being formed and new ideologies are being redefined. What does that have to do with our people? You're going to find out that it has nothing to do with our people. That's why the scripture says, learn not the ways of the what? The heathens. Do not be dismayed. Do not go to learn how they do their things. Do not inquire about their ways. But now we send our children off to the school to be educated in this political understanding. Without giving them at least a foundation in what is the truth. You've done that child a disservice. Because the doctrine that they receive in the schools, as we're going to find in the churches, we will see the conservative end of this stuff. The doctrine that they receive from the so-called churches that are supposed to preaching what is in this book is not what it is. And we send our children, we get educated as children of slaves and colonial people, and learn and get arrogant that we can speak a few big English diction. But the philosophy kills you. The ideology kills you. And it doesn't line up with truth. So here he says, political currency from the founding fathers to the incumbent president suggests that they are perhaps the prevailing Western political creed. If this be true, a discussion of American foreign relations should give heed to the meaning of these philosophies. Liberalism and conservatism, as they have been used in political debate, appear at first glance to be simple and straightforward term. What is conservatism? Abraham Lincoln asked, what is conservatism? Abraham Lincoln asked. He quotes here, is it not adherence to the old and the tried against the new and the untried? End quote. He asks again, is it not adherence to the old and the tried against the new and the untried? The question I always ask in conservatism is what? What are you trying to conserve? If you don't ask that question, if you're a conservative and you're trying to conserve something, you better make sure that what you're conserving lines up with what was old and true in the scriptures of the Almighty. Amen. Because you're going to find out that the so-called conservatives, they're not trying to conserve what's in the scriptures. They're not trying to conserve what was old historically, what was old linguistically, what was ancient, proven, bestseller in the whole world. They're not really trying to conserve it. They're just trying to hold a political position for an agenda. What are you conserving? Do you understand what needs to be conserved? Or are we conserving the old mercantilistic, feudalistic principles that was originated from Europe, that was used to conquer the whole world, and now be educated to the people and sold to the people? As we know, mercantilism was the power of the state to enslave, to colonize, to acquire resources, to build the empire, and get everybody to buy into that state using principles like we're discussing today. So Abraham Lincoln asked the question, what is conservatism? Is it not adherence to the old and the tried against the new and the untried? Others tell us that conservatism seeks to defend the status quo, while liberalism aspires to leave it behind. So you have the liberals that are progressive. We want change. We want to bring change. And conservatives say, no, let's keep it this way. But what if things has already changed? Did you go back to find out what was actually supposed to be conserved? Or are you starting from where you are right now? Those are the questions that we must ask ourselves. If you're conservative, what are you conserving? It continues here. Conservatism finds its treasures in tradition, custom, prejudice, and prescription. According to Chesterfield, the bulk of mankind has neither leisure nor knowledge. Scientific says here, the bulk of mankind have neither leisure nor knowledge sufficient to the right reason, to reason right. Why should they be taught to reason at all? These are European philosophers. But the word of the Almighty is designed to teach you the right reasoning. So this philosopher thinks that we shouldn't even have the capacity to even reason. Why should there even be thought about how to reason? Will not honest instinct, prompt, and wholesome prejudices guide them much better than half reasoning? So we can be like animal and just move based on instincts. And that is why they don't believe in conservatism. There's a few things that I would have loved to touch here, but I want to get into the meat of what we're talking about. So much stuff here. But I'm going to read a little more here. It says, so the English Constitution is, to the conservative, the arch example of custom and prescription. So conservatism comes from the English, this philosophical idea. Again, they both also come from the European who have popularized it. It's not like we didn't know about that. Right. We know what to conserve. We have the laws of the Almighty to conserve. No one taught us that. It's innate. We are, in fact, if they need to conserve anything, they should be looking for the true Israelites and conserve them, because we are the ones that have the truth and the ancient knowledge to be conserved and be preserved. The true customs of how things were set up. So that destroys the whole idea of conservatism, because it leads it back to the Middle Eastern European, where it came from during their feudalistic wars. Before America was even so-called discovered in the age of exploration. It continues, the English Constitution is to the conservatives the arch example of custom and prescription, for its sole authority is that it has existed time out of mind. Conservatism, with its abiding veneration of the past, need not to be aligned to irrevocable against change as such, though this is the besetting danger. Exactly. He says conservatism, anyway, it says here, then is here the apt phrase, the conservatives has a congenial grasp of the rule of thumb for protecting British interests as defined in the Victorian heydays. Exactly what I said. So they want to preserve the Victorian period came after Renaissance. This is classical Europe. 16th century, 17th century, Victorian period. When we are still slaves. When they were still carrying slaves to the Americans. That's when these ideologies are being fomented. This is amazing. We're talking about world history. They wanted to conserve the aristocracy. Then they wanted to conserve mercantilism. When they explored the world and got out of the world. Now they want to conserve the status quo. So it's always about conserving the status quo. Whether that status quo has historically been wrong, let's conserve it. They're not going back to check if it lines up with truth. And that's going to be the overarching theme as you begin to review both sides of the spectrum, whether you're conservative or liberal, whether you're progressive, whether you're socialist or capitalist, whatever you're communist, whatever spectrum that you find yourself, whether you're moderate, you must make sure that you line up with truth that is tried and true. Conservatives opposed too rapid social change because of its consequences. See that? They don't want too much change, so they want to preserve. But again, he keep pointing you to Europeans, and then he also going to talk about liberalism as well. Says here, I'm going to read this here. Moreover, conservative tradition, while it is a worldwide phenomenon, has exerted its greatest impact in particular countries such as Britain and France. You're going to find out that these two principles came from Britain. In fact, actually came from France. But these ideologies is what we've handled within our laws. The law is set. The grace is given to us to show us where we can be liberal in our laws. We know what to conserve and we don't know where to be liberal. This is a new thing for the Europeans. We've already dealt with this stuff. It was already given to us that a grace period is going to come. But the grace is never an opportunity to break laws. So here he says, its greatest impact is particularly in countries such as Britain. In France, the background of the ancient regime and an organic feudal order ought to have given conservatives an objective path to which it appealed. It would have done so, but for one insoluble problem. French conservatives, imbibed with an acute rationalism, were never able to agree among themselves as to just what it was they wished to preserve. Exactly what I said. The people that gave you this idea, their grapple is, what do we preserve? Why? Because they're not coming from truth. They're coming from the philosophies of the nations, of the Gentiles. Again, if you're an Israelite or someone that calls yourself a Christian, what does this mean to you? It means nothing. It's not for us. We can understand it, but it's not for us. In fact, it's designed to rule us and ultimately destroy us. You see? So Great Britain, by contrast, was able to absorb both liberalism of John Locke and the conservatism of Edmund Burke. Its constitutional monarchy provided a fusion of the old and the new political philosophies. The conservative tradition grew up in reaction against the destructive forces released in the process of emancipation from the aristocracy and feudalism. Exactly what we talked about. So this is for them, not for us. But it's this principle that they're going to bring to the America to become the spectrum where we judge our moralism. But now we're going to begin to measure it now. World Politics by Kenneth Thompson. We're going to begin to look at the contentions when these ideologies came to the shores of the 13 so-called colonies. We're going to look at the contending positions of these philosophies and ideologies and measure with truth in the scriptures. First is abortion. Where does the liberal stand when it comes to the abortion? We have a few things that we're going to be referencing here. Let's look at the position of the liberals when it comes to abortion, start from this place. You have I sent it to you, right? Can you pull it up? While you're pulling up, I'm going to be reading. A woman has the right to decide what happens with her body. This is the liberal position. A fetus is not a human life. So, it does not have separate individual right. Government should provide taxpayers funded abortion for women who cannot afford them. Now, if you someone that believes in truth, this will make your blood to boil and congeal. Let me read that again. Government should provide taxpayer-funded abortions for women who cannot afford them. The decision to have an abortion is a personal choice of a woman regarding her own body. And by the way, if we're having this dialogue, feel free to contribute, because we can have this dialogue, because this is a very hard topic. With even ideas and stuff like that, because I don't know it all. So here he says here, the decision to have abortion is a personal choice of a woman regarding her own body, and the government must protect this right. Women have the right to affordable, safe, and legal abortions, including partial birth abortion. Well, let's see what the scripture says. Let's go to the book of Exodus chapter 20 and read verse 13 in the law. Exodus chapter 20. By the way, let me read a caption here. Partial birth abortion. It says here, a partial birth abortion, the killing of an unborn baby of at least 20 weeks.
And that's unviable.
And that's what?
No, medical, that's unviable.
Well, that's when in medical terms, I said, that's when so that's when they feel like life comes in, that's when the child is viable, able to live in 20 weeks. So you can actually kill that child before 20 weeks. Are you kidding me? Are we dealing with human people that have blood and have a soul and have love? How can you prove to me that a child in the mother's womb in other words, that the woman have a right, that child is the woman's body and body only, that the man does not even contribute, because that is giving power to the woman now to kill the baby, even though it's a man that actually put in the seed and owns the child according to the scriptures. And in fact, according to the scripture, a woman don't own herself. According to the scripture, who owns the woman? The man. The man owns the woman. Because the woman did not come from the man. Let's look at that in Corinthians. $11. Absolutely. You have children that are moving. We have scans of children that are before 20 weeks. What are they already doing? Already alive. And you're going to kill an innocent child because you think that a woman is, that's actually part of the body of the woman, that she has to do whatever. So in 1 Corinthians now, chapter 11, it says here, verse 7, you got it? Go ahead. Go ahead.
Verse 8 says...
Start from verse 11.
Verse 11? Okay. Nevertheless, neither is the man...
No, verse 7 rather, I'm sorry.
Right. For a man indeed ought not cover his head, for as much as he is the image and the glory of Elohim.
The man is the what?
Image and glory of Elohim.
Go ahead.
But the woman is the glory of the man.
The woman is the what?
Glory of the man.
Why? Come on.
For the man is not of the woman.
The man did not come from the woman. Come on.
But the woman of the man.
But the woman came from the what?
Man.
The man from the beginning. Go ahead.
Neither was the man created for the woman.
Man was never created to serve the woman, but what?
But the woman for the man.
The woman was created to do what? To serve and help the man. The man is created to love the woman to death. So now, with feminism and liberalism, they have destroyed this so ancient truth that is tried. And we see that most of our women now buy into this nonsense. And they know it's wrong. At least those that have some level of sense. But those that are so far gone, and those that don't even have the capacity to even reason, as the European philosopher said, that we don't even have the capacity to even reason. Why do you have to give them the ability? They don't have the ability to be to rationalize. And a lot of our women are such. So now, a woman have the right to affordable, safe, and legal abortion, including partial birth abortion. That's the contending position of the liberals. And here it tells you, partial birth abortion, the killing of an unborn baby of at least 20 weeks by pulling it out of the birth canal with forceps, but leaving the head inside. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that? Ha! Our people will say, Aaron. Who will think like that? This is not coming from human. This is not coming from Adam, man. This idea is coming from Satan. Straight up. Straight up. An incision is made in the back of the baby's neck, and the brain tissue is suctioned out. The head is then removed from the uterus. Ha! And this is an abortion procedure, correct? This is literally what many women that sleep around. First, you haven't taught them the commandment on how to keep themselves pure or get married and stay married. When you say women have the right to choose, you also have the right to do whatever. That's liberalism. We're not thinking about what they're telling us, and we're not lining up to the truth. Can somebody put the statistics of the amount of babies that are being aborted by so-called African Americans and Latinos? Can someone put that data for us? I'm going to refer back to it. Don't worry about it. They're going to pull it. Because this is very important to understand. With a single stroke of a pen, of a political ideology, you destroy millions of people, and Satan wins. And you as an individual thinking that, well, I have a political position, I'm an intellectual. That's how the people in my political group think, in my political spectrum. That's how they think. I ought to think I like them. The scripture says, do not learn the ways of the heathen. Even as so a human being cannot think this way. It's incredible. So now, adding to the moral law, Exodus chapter 20, read verse 13, please. The book of Exodus chapter 20, verse 13.
Thou shalt not kill.
What does the law say?
Thou shalt not kill.
This is plain murder, and is legal in their law. They're killing people through this principle, this ideology. Innocent children. And as we're going to get the statistics soon, we will soon see that majority of these people that are children that are being aborted are actually being done by our women. The people of this book that have left the laws that was once given to us, and it became a snare and a trap to depopulate us. There are some women coming out from these high institutions, this European institution, and this is exactly how they think. If you're a mother, you know this is wrong. You know this is innately wrong. You should ditch all their political positions. Exodus chapter 21 verse 14, read that as well.
If his master have given him a wife, and she have borne him sons or daughters, the wife and her children shall be her master's, and he shall go.
Hold on 1 second. That was what?
21 and 4.
21:14 rather.
14.
Not 14.
But if a man come presumptuously upon his neighbor, to slay him with guile.
To slay him with what?
Guile.
With guile. Go ahead.
Thou shalt take him from mine altar, that he may die.
That he may what?
Die.
So when you kill people, the judgment for killing people is what? Death. According to the old covenant. The judgment for the law that says that we should abstain from killing people is death. A lot of women today are walking around and they should be put to death. Eventually will be put to death. Because they have a blood guiltiness. Why? You bought into an ideologies and philosophies that was designed to ensnare you. Let's read Leviticus chapter 24, verse 21. Leviticus 24, verse 21. Okay. Go to Romans chapter 13 then. Verse 19. It stops there? Hold on 1 second. Law. We're going to look at why the law was made. The law is not made for righteous people. What they're doing is preventing the law from doing what is intended to do. The law is intended, go to 1 Timothy. 1 Timothy chapter 1 verse 9.
Knowing this, that the law is not made for a righteous man, but for the lawless and disobedient.
The law is not made for the righteous man, but for the what?
Lawless.
And what?
Disobedient.
And disobedient people. Does that sound like the law should ever be done away? Have people stop being disobedient? That's why you always have the law. Continue to read.
For the ungodly and for the sinner.
For the law is not meant for the righteous man, but for the lawless, for the disobedient, for the ungodly, and for what?
Sinners.
For sinners. Go ahead.
For unholy.
For unholy.
Profane.
For
murderers.
And murderers of what? Fathers. Come on.
And murderers of mothers.
Murderers of what? Mothers for, go ahead.
And manslayers.
People that kill people. people that kill innocent people. But now, what they have done with this ideology is to suppress this law. They're supposed to create true reform. So in one hand, while they put other people that actually kill people in jail, but they're not going to kill people that are killing children, because based on their philosophy, they think that a child that has 18 weeks old is not a person yet. Even if it's a person, a woman have right to kill that child. Did we get that statistics?
We do have it.
Go ahead and give it to us, please.
Okay, the website is operationrescue.org, abortion by race. Blacks comprise only 13% of the population of America, but account for 37% of all abortions.
So we're supposed to be only 13% of our population, but amazingly enough, we constitute how many percent?
37%.
Almost 40% of all the abortion by the tribe of Judah alone in America.
Black women are 5 times more likely to abort than white women.
Black children, but black women, so-called black, which is Israelite women, are 5 times more likely to have abortion than Edomite women. Go ahead.
69% of the pregnancies among blacks are unintended, while the number of 54% among Hispanics and 40% of pregnancies among whites.
Hold on. We have to, that's a whole lot of stuff in there now. Take it one after the other. Read that again.
69% of pregnancies among blacks are unintended.
69 pregnancies among black are what?
Unintended.
Unintended. What does that mean, unintended? Well, that means you were committing one sin, and now you want to make up for your sin, so let me go kill this child before he reaches 20 weeks old. Or maybe I have not gone to your courts to satisfy my legal documentation so that I don't look bad in front of the people. Because you've been brainwashed to buy in these philosophies. So this liberal ideologies is giving sinners a way not to be reformed. Think about that. It suppresses the truth. Continue to read.
While the number is 54% among Hispanics.
54%. So now the Hispanic population is a mixed population. You have Israelites there, you have Edomites there. But that's still high, so you have Israel still in that block, in that demography. Continue.
And 40% of pregnancies amongst the whites.
40%. They're always lower. But they constitute so-called high proportion of the population. So who is this law affecting? Who is this ideology affecting the most? You got some more juicy stuff?
I do.
Go ahead.
Planned Parenthood, the largest seller of abortions in the United States, has located 80% of its abortion clinics in minority neighborhoods.
So who are they targeting?
Minority neighborhoods.
And who are the so-called minorities?
Hebrews.
The Hebrews in America, as a case in point.
Abortions by...
No, that's the last stuff. 80% of Planned Parenthood, which we know was actually funded by Bill and Melinda Gates, who are known to be eugenicists. So what are they trying to do? So I was going to get that first article because I was going to touch base on that article before I started. The one that talks about black leaders.
And what is that,
Margaret Sanger. Absolutely. She was actually paid by these liberal philosophy contenders, the elitist contenders, to actually bring about this process of eugenesis that's targeted specifically to a race. So my question is, why are our leaders buying into these ideologies? Or so-called leaders? Why are we even participating in any political system that kills anybody? Especially the unborn, the child. You have some more?
Abortions by race. Black, 37%. Hispanic, 22%.
So you put them together, how much was the percentage? 57%.
59%.
59% altogether. How about the native people or the others?
8%.
So you put it together, how much is that? Almost 65%, right?
67.
67%. So you have the so-called minorities constituting the majority of the abortion in America. The children of Israel. Why is that? Because a philosophy that came from the liberals have liberated you to think in this way. And that's why the commandment is pure. The commandment is designed for the sinners, for the profane, for the disobedient. But liberals are disobedient because they want to be liberated from the law.
That's right. That's right.
They want to be liberated from the tried and true. And now we have children, blood crying. And what are our leaders doing? Read that article.
Article is from many black voters skeptical of Trump's birther, his birther face. Washington AP, it says black voters react.
This is Associated Press from Washington, D.C. And this just came in this morning or yesterday. This came in yesterday. Go ahead and read it, brother.
Okay, it says black voters reacted skeptically Friday to Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump's admission that he now believes that the nation's first black president was indeed born in the United States. Many said that the fact that Trump spent years questioning President Barack Obama's national origin was disrespectful and an insult to all black Americans. It says, despite the fact that Obama himself said that he viewed this renewed burst of commentary about his birth as fairly typical and not surprising, members of the Congressional Black Caucus were clearly angry.
Members of the what?
Congressional Black Caucus.
How dare he say such a thing to our elaborate and illustrious black president? Who actually stands for us, our liberal black president. Our first black president. How dare these white supremacists say that? Did you see how political spectrum destroys us? You're not even talking about the real matter. You're looking at so-called race. All these so-called people in the black caucus, all these representatives, they've all sold out. And these are our so-called intellectuals and educated who are playing the game in this system. And they're publishing something like this to make it feel like we are all with them and they're representing our interest as part of their constituents, which they're not. Like they have a jurisdictional right over us because they look like us. I'm not even looking at the content. I'm just focused on these black caucuses. What they're focusing on. Why are they supporting Obama, knowing what Obama has done in this country as a Manchurian candidate? Because of these ideologies. You can read it just a little bit more.
It says, though the president says this is fairly typical and not surprising, members of the Black Caucus were clearly angry. It says, during a heated news conference Friday, during the CBC's annual legislative conference.
This is yesterday, brothers and sisters.
He says several lawmakers denigrated Trump for perpetuating birther falsehoods for so long.
By the way, what Trump is saying is true, actually. But because these people have a political position and they've paid on that spectrum, they're not going to be able to speak truth. Even though Trump is also on the other side, working for the same people on the other side. The whole thing is a joke. Even though Trump is actually put in that position to elect the first female president in Clinton. They're all working together. But we have people that look like us, and they call them blacks, and we're not blacks, we're Israelites. But they have used them to make it seem like they're representing us. But if you know who we are, you should be pointing us to where we came from, to the true and tried true laws that established us as a people.
That's right.
we are totally destroyed and hopeless if these are the people that represent us. And that's why we're in our condition. The Europeans know that. They laugh at that. The nations understand that. They laugh at these people doing stuff like this that say they represent us. Don't you understand the system, how it works? I mean, I can go on and on, but we got to move on. There's so much to be talked about here. It's incredible. So now on the conservative side, we've already established that the conservative, what they lack is now on this. First of all, they don't know where the truth is. They're not seeking for truth. They lack sincerity to the law. Why? They're not hanging on the laws. Even though they try to claim abortion is wrong because of their so-called Judaistic Christian principle. But when you actually try to shake them in that principle, you find out that they actually allow their daughters to go commit abortion. So, do you really believe in what you say? Or is it just a political position? So now, let's look at a good example. Go to that article that talks about a conservative argument for a genetic modification of the embryo. It's an article. Now, conservatives now talking about allowing embryonic change, embryonic modification. Go ahead. This is Science 2.0 article or magazine on a session called Conservative Argue for Genetic Modification of Embryos by Hank Campbell, February 3rd, 2016. Go ahead.
He says, I have often argued that the pro-life movement has a disconnect about actual life when it comes to science.
Now keep in mind that the person that is writing this stuff is actually so-called liberal. So he's going to be denigrating this guy, but listen to how he's talking about this. Go ahead.
I don't mean about the health issues of abortion or birth control. I mean about saving babies using science. They seem to think science should only help after a baby is born. Exactly the opposite of the argument they make about the beginning of life during abortion debates.
So we can mess with the baby. Since we can take science, like they're the author of science. You see, the science and the almighty question, the dichotomy between the creator and science. Who created science? No. Almighty created true science. Satan manipulated science. Satan manipulated science because he wanted to create hybrids. We saw from the book of Enoch, from Kanoki, we saw from the ancient time, from the times of the fallen angels, even from their very inception, what they have always tried to do, what necessitated the flood, the original deluge, was the fact that they were doing what?
Manipulating
Go ahead.
The genetic phenome.
Yes.
The original creation.
Absolutely. To create their own hybrid. It's hybridization. And that's the same experimentation that they're still doing today. But now, because that has a political position, this is a game now. A mind game. So he's coming at the conservatives, who at least try to hold a position. He's saying, no. You all think that you can use science when someone is healthy. And you can cure them. But before a child is born, you say science is not good. That's not what we say. The Most High created true science. But you know what you're operating from, the knowledge of good and evil. It's psychology. It's dichotomy. It's duality. It's esoteric. You're acting like we don't know where you get your information from. So he's going to use this understanding to go out as conservative. But listen to what he said that is also viable. Go ahead.
Because when I was a child, conservatives were the group most likely to be the supporters of science. But by the 2000s, it looked more like liberals were.
Why? Because liberals have seen a way now to capitalize on science to change everything.
Continue.
This may be because in America, conservative and liberal have little meaning the way they used to, and instead voters fall into two camps. If less abortion is your hot button issue, you vote with Republicans. If keeping it available on demand is important, you vote with Democrats.
So they have essentially destroyed the people. You don't know where you stand, and that's what you're going to be hearing echoed as we go through these different positions. But the worst thing is that our people are caught up in these ideologies and philosophies. Because why? First, you got a first nationality, a nation state. You don't know what's your true nationality. And if you don't know that you're Israel, well, you don't know what law you should be keeping, because now you think you're born in American geography, so you're an American citizen, then you should actually count your votes based